back to the Herbig Design Co workshop. Today we're looking to knock out a resin serving board or charcuterie board or river board, whatever you want to call them. It's a resin board with some awesome timber in it as well. Picked myself up some perfect cast resin from Charcuterie and I'm going to try out the new Charcuterie range of eye candy pigments, and let's give that a crack. A lot of people are doing the whole live edge river board, all that sort of stuff. I'm going to do something a little bit different for you, something you've probably never seen before. I'm going to take these offcuts from a few chopping boards that I've made. I'm going to turn that into our resin river board or our resin serving board. First things first, we need a mold. So let me whack this together. This is just melamine coated MDF board. I've wrapped it all in tape, just clear packing tape, just to help the resin not stick to it. And now we're going to put it together and see if we can't make this into a mold that we can use. There we are, mold assembled, not done. We still need to seal it. Resin is like water. It will find a hole anywhere. So now that we've got this assembled, what we're going to do is just run around just with some silicone and we'll seal it up and make sure that it's completely sealed so that when we put our board in, ready to go, it's not going to leak everywhere. That's essentially our mold done. As with everything with resin work, it's all about patience. You're not going to do a resin job in a day with any type of resin. And you're not going to build a mold in a day. So this is all sealed up now. We'll let the silicone sit for 24 hours and that'll let that set. Once that's set, we'll come back, we'll mix up our resin and we'll start pouring. So we're back at it. We've got our mold, we've sealed it up, it's all sealed. So now's the fun part. Now we start mixing. I tend to just use plastic cups to measure, and these old butter containers are perfect for mixing in. The perfect cast, rigid casting resin is deep pour resin up to 20 centimeters, or 20 centimeters, 20 millimeters. If you go above that, then it can get sketchy and it starts to overheat as it's setting. So it's a 2-to-1 resin, 2 parts resin, 1 part hardener. So we're going to give this a good mix for a couple of minutes, just to bring the resin and the hardener together. I've got my pigments ready, so I'm going to go with the eye candy rainbow green, and I'm going to put in a little bit of the eye candy blue blood, just to give it some deeper tone. I want kind of like a nice deep green. Okay, so we've got our pigments in, they're all mixed in. See, that's come up nice. Rich green with a little hint of blue in it. I'm going to set that aside for a little bit. And we're going to prepare our mould. Like I said, the mould's all ready. What we're going to do now is just line up our pieces in it. The other thing we're going to do as well, resin's liquid, so it's going to run just like water will. We're going to throw the level on it and make sure it's level, and that way as our resin sets, it's going to set level. That's our pour done. What I like to do is you can come back through now using your mixing stick, whatever you've used, or just an offcut. And if you want to add a pattern or anything in, now's the time to do it. But you need to keep adding it. The pigment will set. So as it sets, the pattern will disappear. So you come back and add that in. The other thing we want to do is get rid of the pesky bubbles. So we're just going to apply a little bit of heat, not too much, across the top. We'll let this sit for probably a couple of days in the mould before we pop the clamps off. After that, it'll probably sit again for another couple of days until it's really firm and set. As it's curing, you'll want to come back every now and then and just knock down the bubbles, give it a bit of a mix again to get your pattern back into it. It's been a couple of days now. This is all cured up nicely. Now we need to pop it out of the mould and we'll get it cleaned up, ready to finish. And that's our board there. So there's a couple of ways we can clean it up. Obviously we want to clean up all this old resin. A couple of ways we can cover that off. We can either hit it with a sander and just sand it for days. What I like to do is I actually run my resin a little bit lower so that I can come through with a thicknesser and take the top off and bring it back down level. Flip it over and just run the underside through the thicknesser as well. That way I know I'm going to get a nice flat surface on both sides. Okay, we've got it all cleaned up. You can see it come up nice. You can see the timber's popped up, the resin's sitting back in there. There's a few little pinholes that I want to fill. So what I'm going to do is just come through, just with a little bit of CA glue and some activator. We're going to fill those up and we can sand straight away. I'll spare you the pain of watching me sand. So now we've got the sanding done, let's pop over to the table saw, we'll cut it down to final size, and then we can come back and finish sand. So we cut down to size now, and we've sanded up to 80 grit. What I like to do after 80 grit is when I come around and do my edge treatment. So whether I want to do a hand sanded edge, just break the sharp edges, or whether I want to come through with the trim router and maybe do a round over or a chamfer. On this one, I think I'm going to put a chamfer, a light one around the top, and maybe a slightly heavier one around the bottom, just to help pick it up a bit easier. Now we want to water pop the grain. Okay, so we've all sanded up. I've sanded it up to 220, which is kind of really beautiful. What I really want to do though is I want this resin to really shine up a bit better. So what I've got is some 360 and 600 grit wet dry, and I'm going to jump in now. I'm just going to wet sand these little resin areas, especially on the top of the board, just to help it come to life a bit better. Now we're going to apply the finish. My finish for charcuterie boards, cheese boards, chopping boards, the works, is my own blend of board butter, which is a mineral oil and beeswax blend that I make to the consistency that I find is best. We'll apply that on just with a simple cloth, rub it in, buff it in. We'll put it on pretty generous as a new board. Then we'll come back, let it sit for probably overnight. We'll come back in the morning, buff it off, and I'll come over with a buffer and really bring it up to a shine. Okay, so we're back at it. The board butter's had an overnight to settle in. Just going to come back and wipe off the excess, and I'm going to hit it with the buffer and bring it up to a really nice finish. So there we have it, our completed resin board. Bit different to what you see in most resin river boards and that sort of stuff, but I think it come up absolutely mint. The pattern that came out of this resin is amazing. Once again, the perfect cast resin and eye candy pigments from the team at Carbotech. With the range of pigments that eye candy have got, the colours you could come up with are endless. I've used 2 different colours here to get this finish, but you start mixing whatever you like and who knows what you could come up with. Until next time, stay safe, keep making.